Another topic which I couldn't quite fit into the flow and outline of the lecture I gave you on the prehistoric period is the topic of prehistoric art. You should know some things about, at least a few things about prehistoric art. Another Cro-Magnon invention with a question mark there, because this is recently opened up as a point of controversy and contention, because a series of cave paintings have been discovered in Spain, pretty conclusively dated to a time before there were Cro-Magnon people in Europe altogether, and only Neanderthal people lived in Spain, as far as we know. And so only in the last few years has that become a point of controversy. But specifically, the pieces I'm going to be showing you today are Cro-Magnon works of art. The most famous Cro-Magnon work of art is a series of cave paintings in a place called Lascaux in France, and you see the name of that place at the top of the screen here. These paintings are about 20,000 years old. They were only discovered in 1940. They're the most famous of the prehistoric cave paintings because they're the best preserved that we have. That's because a mudslide covered up the entrances to the cave and kept kept outside air from entering into the cave. Whatever oxygen was in the air reacted with the paint in a chemical process of degrading the paint, but once that chemical process was over and the oxygen in the cave had been used up, then they were preserved for 20,000 years. They were discovered in 1940 when a 18-year-old young man was walking in a field with his dog, and the dog fell through a hole that had opened up in the ground. So he went and got a flashlight and his friends to come and get his dog out. And when he went through the hole, he discovered these paintings. There's a whole series of caves where these in Lascaux. You know, these caves that are connected to each other, caverns, I think they're called. You see where the animals kind of blend together, overlay each other. I'm told that these paintings have a three-dimensional quality to them, because the artists who went into the cave would find outcroppings of rock from the wall that maybe kind of looked like the shoulder blade of a bull, and they would draw the animal around that part of the cave. I'm hoping I'm explaining that to you. It's kind of like a combination of painting and sculpture. And here's another view. No one knows what these paintings were for. You might think they were just decorations on the wall of a house, like people put up paintings on the walls of their houses today, but no one ever lived in these caves. We know that because if you lived in a cave, you would have to have a fire for light and warmth. And if you ever go into a cave, you can see pretty quickly if anyone's ever lived in it, because if you look at the ceiling of the cave, you'll see a carbon circle where smoke from the fire would go up and lay a layer of carbon over the roof of the cave. And we don't find carbon on the roofs of the caves. And so that means that whoever made these made them using a torch or something, of course, to go into the dark cave, but wasn't in long enough to find to have that carbon laid on top of it. The paint wasn't applied with a brush. It was applied with it was actually spray painted, believe it or not. We don't know exactly how, of course. But apparently the paint was in like a leather bag, and then they would use a hollow reed to blow through, and to blow through connected to the bag of pigment somehow. Here we see where some Cro-Magnon person has put their hand up on the wall and then spray painted around it. So there's a Cro-Magnon person waving at you from 20,000 years ago. In fact, here's a bunch of Cro-Magnon people waving at you from 20,000 years ago. In fact, there's a whole wall full of Cro-Magnon people waving at you. Isn't that cool? We also see Cro-Magnon sculpture. Here's the earliest sculpture we've found. It's called the Venus of Willendorf. That's a name, of course, that we've given to it. We don't know what people called it who made it. Willendorf is the place where it was found. Probably, we don't know what it was for. Probably a good luck charm for pregnant women. I mean, that's a good guess, a common guess, but we don't really know. What I can tell you is that it meant something very important to somebody a very long time ago, because someone put a lot of work into making this. Remember we talked about making a stone knife and how difficult that would be? Think about what it took to carve this out of stone. Here we have carved out of ivory, probably mastodon tusk, elephant tusk, something like elephant tusk. This one's just called Lion Man. He's kind of cool. Here we have a mastodon, an early relative of the elephant, carved out of mastodon tusk. Someone took a lot of time to make this. It meant something to somebody a very long time ago. Here we have what's left of a horse. And here the figure of a woman carved out of ivory. You know, I could just look at this stuff all day long, but I know you've got other stuff to do. But I do want you to know some things about Cro-Magnon art and to appreciate the talents that people had a very long time ago.